This past Saturday was UFC 308, Ilia Topuria versus Max Holloway. It was an amazing card from top to bottom. I'm going to give you my top 3 takeaways from the card. I'm going to start with a couple honorable mentions, then I'm going to get into my actual list, saving number 1 and my last takeaway for my biggest takeaway from UFC 308. Let's jump right into it. Starting off with my first honorable mention, and that is that I have no desire to see Ilia Topuria versus Alexander Volkanovski 2. It appears as if that is the next fight they're going to book. Volkanovski, undefeated at featherweight for many years. He loses the belt to Ilia Topuria in a fight where he gets chinned in the second round. And it appears that he's going to be next in line. It appears that Volkanovski is going to wait it out for another title fight. I have no desire to see that fight again. I know Volk deserves it. I know some people are going to say, oh, well, he lost twice in a row and he got KO'd twice in a row. Yeah, he was at lightweight on short notice against Islam. Horrible decision, by the way. And I said that even before the fight happened. You got 49-46 by a guy on a full camp. But now everyone, including your teammate Dan Hooker and all the fans, hyped you up. Yeah, you won, bro. You won, bro. Let me take a fight with this same guy on a couple days' notice who's been training the entire time. Yeah, horrible idea. Gets chin there. And then, let me take a quick turnaround against the biggest power puncher in my division ever. And gets chin. Now, I'm glad he took the time off. But you're watching Topuria chinning Volk and Holloway back-to-back. I don't think it goes any differently the second time. And I tell you guys this all the time. We have to appreciate special fighters in their special moment in time because it's gone like that. Think about this. I want you to think about this. The perception of Alexander Volkanovski in February of 2023, post-UFC 284, where some people were claiming he beat Islam Makhachev. But either way, even if you thought he lost, his stock kind of went up because of the way he competed in that fight. And then he beat Yair, blew Yair out the water. Think about where he was post that Islam first fight and think about where he is now. I think he gets chinned by Ilia Topuria. Topuria put Max Holloway out, who's impossible to put away. I don't think it's going to go any differently for a Volkanovski who's now, almost a year older. It's not going to happen until probably February of next year at the earliest. Yeah, it's not going to go well. I have no desire to see it. I don't think it should be Diego Lopez. To be honest, it should be Movsar Evloev who beats Aljamain Sterling. And that'd be a banger fight, undefeated versus undefeated. I feel like Movsar Evloev is kind of getting, disrespected a bit, but that's a topic for a whole nother video. We're going to see Topuria Volk too. I just really am not clamoring for it. Let me know what you guys think about that. But let's move on to my next honorable mention. And that is that Magomed Ankalaev must get the next title shot. We better see Alex Pereira versus Magomed Ankalaev for the light heavyweight title. Listen, I'm tired of the disrespect. I'm really tired of the disrespect for Magomed Ankalaev. I'm tired of the false narratives. I'm tired of fans as well as pundits and, MMA media members, if you want to say media members instead, regurgitating the same dumbass narratives. I don't understand why Ankalaev is graded on such a curve. People are acting like he's so boring. This is not a boring fighter. Objectively, this guy is not a boring fighter. He had a fight against, Alexander Rakic that wasn't the craziest fight ever, but you could see Ankalaev trying to push forward and look for the finish the entire fight. Rakic seemed like he was paid to try to make it boring. He ran the entire fight, pretended he was up 2 rounds, and then stalled out the rest of the third round. But we have to see this fight. This guy's on this crazy unbeaten streak. He's beaten everyone they put in front of him. And at some point, we have to stop with these bullshit narratives. Oh, well, this guy's boring. And, oh, well, he only beat Johnny Walker. He's beaten who has been put in front of him. And beating Rakic, Johnny Walker by KO. He got robbed against Jan Blachowicz. Magomed Ankalaev is really the uncrowned champ at light heavyweight. I don't care what anyone says. I know it's going to rile some people up, especially Pereira fans. It's a fight that needs to get made. And I'm telling you, the fact that it's kind of been pushed off a little bit, and Khalil Roundtree gets a title shot, and he had to fight Rakic, who was probably the toughest possible fight in the division outside of the champion. I feel like it's going to build it up a bit. I feel like there's going to be a bit of hype behind this fight now because it's going to be like, okay, Pereira's chin Yuri. He's chin Jamal Hill, who Jamal Hill, talk about a delusional, idiot, dumb as a box of rocks. This guy had the audacity to say, yeah, the fight was boring and, Rakic was using his weapons, but Ankalaev was just looking to counter-strike the entire time. How fucking stupid is that guy? Did he even watch the fight? But it's crazy how many people grade Ankalaev on a curve and act like, if he doesn't fight like Yuri Prochazka, he's not exciting. You had DC acting like the fight was close. You had some media members acting like the fight was close. Rakic literally landed nothing the entire fight except a couple leg kicks. He lost all 3 rounds, in my opinion. First round, you could maybe make the argument that he won. I still think that's delusional. I rewatched it. So it's time for Magomed Ankalaev. It's time for Alex Pereira versus Magomed Ankalaev for the light heavyweight title. Can't wait to see that in 2025. It's, looking like it's not going to happen by the end of the year. It's almost the end of the year. How crazy is that? But yeah, that's the next fight to make. Last honorable mention before we get into my actual list. And I debated about putting this on the actual list, but I feel like one day I'm going to make a dedicated video on this. Let's talk about Abu Dhabi Privilege that a lot of people seem to be talking about recently, particularly after Rinat Fakhretdinov versus Carlos Leal. I broke this down on my post-fight. I broke this down. I was tweeting about it as well. Some people recently, and this has been a narrative for a long time, have said basically Muslim fighters, people from the Caucasus region, really just Middle Eastern fighters in general, get some type of special privilege in Abu Dhabi, and it's just simply not true. And the facts do not bear it out. And people are using Rinat Fakhretdinov versus Carlos Leal as an example. Because Rinat ended up with a 30-20. Rinat ended up with a unanimous decision scorecard, which was egregious and a horrible 3 scorecards by 3 different judges. 2 judges gave him a 29-28 scorecard, which is somewhat defensible, but still egregious. And then 1 judge gave him a 30-27 scorecard. And a lot of uproar. And it's because Rinat's Muslim. I've seen people say this. Listen, this doesn't even pass the sniff test, okay? You're going to say that Rinat is getting privilege from a self-regulating commission. It's not even an Abu Dhabi commission. The UFC brings these guys over, okay? The majority of these guys are from the Nevada State Athletic Commission. That's why it's the usual suspects. That's why you have, I'm trying to think who was even some of the refs on Saturday. I believe Mark Goddard was the main event ref, and it's a usual suspect with the judges. There might be some weird outliers, but for the most part, it's from Las Vegas for the most part, okay? And besides that, if you want to say they are biased because they're in Abu Dhabi, even though most of them are American judges, you would have to look at other cards and say, oh, well, this doesn't happen on other cards. Every single week, there's shitty fight cards. Every single week, there's robberies. It is an issue, but it's an issue of incompetence. I don't think those judges, maybe that one guy did, I don't know. The 30-27 is so crazy, maybe. Maybe he's Muslim and he was, I'm writing it down from that. I don't believe that. I think what it is just pure incompetence, and judging needs to be overhauled, but it has nothing to do with some type of Abu Dhabi privilege. I was going to, go back on other cards and point out every single robbery, every single egregious scorecard. We see them literally every single week. It's a rarity that we don't see them. So how come when we see them in Abu Dhabi by the same judges that are giving bad decisions on other cards, all of a sudden it's Abu Dhabi privilege of some sort? It makes absolutely no sense. I wanted to break that down in the video. Maybe in the future I'll do a whole dedicated video on that. But let's get into my actual list, starting off with number 3. And that is that Khamzat Chimaev is a future champion, and he better be next for the title. I believe he will be next for the title. I encourage you. I did an entire video on it yesterday. I will link it down in the description as well as the end cards if you want to go check it out. I broke down, piece by piece why I believe Dricus du Plessis versus Khamzat Chimaev will be next. Go check out that video. So I'm not going to spend too much time on it, even though it is my number 3 takeaway. I believe he is the next champion, okay? I believe he will get the next fight. I believe he deserves the next fight. And I do believe he will beat Dricus du Plessis. And I know people are going to say, Joe, you said you were never picking against Dricus again. Look, times change, boys. He went out there and he really bulldozed Robert Whittaker. And I know the, kind of the Chimaev haters are already grasping at straws. And, well, Whittaker had an injury. I've already seen people talking about it on Twitter. Whittaker had an injury when he was 19 years old. They're digging up 14-year-old injuries to explain why Chimaev almost popped Robert Whittaker's head off and had him frantically tapping for his life. Okay? And I don't even care, even if you want to somehow say, oh, well, it's because of this or because of that, and whatever. I don't buy it to begin with. What he did to Robert Whittaker in that fight was incredible. Undoubtedly worthy of a title shot, to go out there and beat a former middleweight champion in Robert Whittaker and dispatch him in 3 minutes and 34 seconds. Is incredible, and this is coming on the heels of beating Kamaru Usman on short notice, the most underrated win in UFC history. I've been beating that drum for 6 months. I've been beating that drum for a year, really. He got no credit for that. I'll take a win over Kamaru Usman at 185, regardless of circumstances, and a win over Robert Whittaker at 185 to earn yourself a title shot. Also, you can take into account his 170 resume as well, which is Gilbert Burns and Li Jingliang and some decent names there. Nothing crazy, but some decent names there. But I'll take Usman on short notice at 185, Whittaker at 185 versus Sean Strickland, who, squeaked a split decision, boring ass win against Paulo Costa. I'll take that all day. So I've already hashed that out. I don't want to get into it. He's undoubtedly number one, but man, I think he's going to run through DDP. I think he is going to run through Dricus du Plessis and win that middleweight title. It's going to be amazing to watch because if anyone can somehow find a way to victory, it's Dricus du Plessis. This man never says die. This man never gives up. But seeing him get shot through by Robert Whittaker in the first round of their fight last year, seeing him get absolutely ragdolled by Derek Brunson in the first round before Derek Brunson gassed, it's hard not to imagine the jiu-jitsu and the grappling base of Khamzat Chimaev combined with the aggressive grappling onslaught from start to finish. It's hard to not imagine him getting DDP out of there in the first round. So I do believe that Khamzat Chimaev is a future champion. I do believe that he is next in line. And I do believe, and I said this recently, and I've really been trying to think about it. You guys will have to let me know what you think. I think du Plessis versus Chimaev right now may be the single biggest fight the UFC can make. And imagine they make that in South Africa. Even if it ends up being in February in Australia, sign me up. That is one of the biggest fights the UFC can make. But I truly believe that Khamzat Chimaev is a future champion. I do believe he will beat Dricus du Plessis. I believe he'll probably finish him in the first or second round. And I can't wait to see it because that's a banger fight. Because if Dricus is able to survive, I'm curious of what kind of dog fight that turns into. Because Dricus does have physicality. But I don't think he has the physicality of a Khamzat Chimaev, who may be the best grappler we've seen in the UFC, period. So moving on to my number 2 takeaway from UFC 308. And people aren't going to like this one, but Max Holloway is moving to 155 pounds lightweight, and he's no longer the BMF. I don't care what anyone says, and I don't care if you want to say it wasn't on line. They didn't put it on the line for this fight. He didn't lose it. Listen, he lost it even if he didn't get KO'd. He walked out there, okay? He walked out there as the BMF, hyped up off that Justin Gaethje KO, which was a crazy KO, but massively overhyped. And Topuria absolutely embarrassed him in the first 10 seconds. Said, let's stand and bang in the center of the cage. And then went to the center of the cage and pointed. And Max Holloway just stood 50 feet away from him. I don't want no trouble. That is not a BMF. And I understand people are going to say, well, this was for the featherweight title and he's got to fight smart and blah, blah, blah. You can't claim to be the BMF and claim to be the best boxer in the UFC. And then when the guy that you supposedly a better boxer than asks you to stand and bang in the center and you say, no, I don't want no trouble. So he needs to be stripped of the BMF. It really belongs to Ilia Topuria. It actually is really belong Muhammad's BMF title, by the way. He's the lineal BMF champ. Look that up if you don't believe me. That's facts. But yeah, you can't do that. You can't say, no, I'm not going to stand and bang. And I said this from the very beginning, and I know people still get uptight about this and don't like this. I think the KO over Justin Gaethje is overrated. I talk about it, and I was mixing up my comparisons, but in the movie Dune 2, they have this noble guy who's going to go down and fight multiple warriors to look like a badass, and they drug the other guys. They drug him, so it's like a 1-on-3, but he can look like a badass, but the 3 guys are drugged. Or I believe it's in Gladiator, they injure the guys before they put him out there. So it's 1-on-2 or 1-on-3, and he looks like a badass. Max Holloway brutally eye gouged Justin Gaethje 2 or 3 times in the first round, and then beat him to a bloody pulp for 4.5 rounds before finally luring that wounded animal to the center of the cage and knocking him out. And fair play, it was an awesome moment. It was a historic moment. It's going to go down in MMA history. But he didn't do that against Volkanovski in the 5th round of their fight, in the 3rd fight, because he was getting dominated. He refused to do it with Ilia Topuria. Man, it's a bad look. It's really a bad look. It really is. So, and besides, he gets brutally chinned in the 3rd round anyway. And I know he had a good performance. I'm not trying to shit on Max here, even though I know people are going to take it that way. I like Max Holloway. But what does he have to offer at featherweight anymore? He looks sucked and drained at featherweight anyway. And, now he's gotten finished by Topuria. He has 3 losses to Alexander Volkanovski. I think the next fight, they'll probably do a BMF title fight, even though it's a fake WWE belt that he shouldn't even have anymore. They'll probably do Dustin Poirier, Max Holloway 3, I believe it'll be. I believe it'll be 3. Let me see if I can figure. Yeah, it'll be 3. Yeah, the second fight. That's crazy. They fought so long ago. They both fought at featherweight in the past. They'll probably do Dustin Poirier and Max Holloway 3 for the BMF title in 2025. And I believe Max should just stay at 155. He doesn't have anything for Topuria, in my opinion. I don't think he'll ever beat Topuria. And we saw that on set. We found out on October 26th. So yeah, I think Max should go to 155. I think that makes more sense. You know, there's some more favorable matchups for him there. And I know some people are hoping that maybe he can somehow end up with a Conor McGregor rematch at some point. I don't know if that's going to happen. But yeah, he needs to go to 155. He has no business at 145 anymore. Topuria is going to be there, going to have his reign for a while, and I don't think Max can beat him in any world. You know, maybe he can earn another shot and get KO'd again, but even then, I don't want to see it. I'd rather see him at 155. Moving on to my number one takeaway from UFC 308, and that is, at UFC 308, 2 stars were born. Ilia Topuria and Khamzat Chimaev. And I don't say that lightly. I know people joke, oh, Joe, you said if O'Malley wins at 306, he's going to be a star. I stood behind that. I truly believe Topuria and Chimaev already had significant star power. With their wins at UFC 308, I believe truly 2 stars were born in the UFC. And when I say that, I'm not saying they're a Conor McGregor level star, not yet, but I do believe their next fights, regardless of who they're against, it could be Topuria versus Volk 2, it can be, you know, Duplessis Chimaev for the middleweight title. I think they're both going to be significant draws, and I think they're a couple fights away from being like a blockbuster draw in the UFC. I'm not saying Conor McGregor. I'm not saying they're going to draw 1.2 million pay-per-view buys. But let me put it this way. If Topuria wins like 2 more fights, I think he's getting into Conor McGregor territory. You know, maybe not just there just yet. And I think Chimaev, I think the sky's the limit for Chimaev as well. If he goes out there and ragdolls Drakkar and finishes him in the first round, I genuinely believe Chimaev can get as close to Conor McGregor's star power as anyone in the last, you know, however many years. And I've never made these claims before, ever. I've never made them about anyone. And I've been watching this sport. I have a good, I'm trying to think of the word I'm looking for here, but I feel like I have a good grasp of some of these guys' career trajectories if they continue to win. And I do believe that Chimaev is looking at straight up superstardom. People saying the aura has gone away, and look at his hair and look at his beard and look at his glasses, and he's going to get starched by Robert Whittaker. And you know, now they're saying, oh, he's a heavy favorite. He's a heavy favorite. Of course he was going to win. Listen, he made Robert Whittaker his bitch in the first round. And if he goes out there and beats Drakkar Duplessis, who beats him in the middleweight division? I don't know. So you're going to have a dude who looks unbelievable, something we've never seen before, out there starching dudes left and right. Obviously, he's going to have to be active. You know, I think he will be active. We'll get at least 2 fights out of him a year, which is basically the kind of bookmark for every other champion in this sport. I think Chimaev literally can be massive. Over 1 million pay-per-view buys by next year, I think. He could legitimately do that if he continues to win. I think Duplessis versus Chimaev is going to be huge in general. I think that could get close to 1 million pay-per-view buys, depending on how they build that card, depending on where it happens. Saudi Arabia, Abu Dhabi is going to be willing to pay good money to have Chimaev defend there, okay? I think it should happen in South Africa if he gets his first title fight. And for Ilia Topuria, man, he has the whole kind of, you know, he has the Spain market behind him. He's got everything. He's got everything. He has good trash talk. He speaks like 17 different languages. I'm exaggerating, obviously. And his skill set is unbelievable. I think Ilia Topuria's fight of the year. You know, people are saying, oh, it's Alex Pereira fight of the year. I think Topuria's fight of the year, back-to-back wins, Alexander Volkanovski, Max Holloway, and the ways that he did it, knocked them both out. I think he's pound for pound over John Jones. And that's not even, I don't even think that's up for debate, to be quite honest. John Jones won 1 fight in the last 4 fucking years. We're going to make him pound for pound over Ilia Topuria. And Topuria is so well-rounded. And I just think that package is perfect for what the UFC wants. You know, he's young. He's, you know, brash. He's kind of cocky. He's got great trash talk. And his skill set is incredible. And he's exciting every single fight. Topuria is going to be massive if he can continue to win. And I don't see who beats him. I think the only person in the featherweight division that even has a chance would be Movsar Evloev. And I don't think Movsar Evloev even beats Ilia Topuria. So there were 2 massive stars born at UFC 308 in Topuria and Chimaev. We saw glimpses of it in the past. But it was like, okay, Topuria beat Volk, but there was kind of that underlying story. Well, wait a second. Volkanovski came back pretty quickly after a brutal KO, head kick KO against Islam Makhachev, where he lost. And it was like, okay, now he's fighting Max Holloway, who's coming back down from winning the BMF title against Justin Gaethje. He did it. You know, there's no discrediting anything that he's done now. And I don't see anyone beating him. I don't see Volkanovski getting a win. I see him, you know, continuing his title run for the foreseeable future. And imagine at some point we get like Topuria, Evloev, both undefeated. And that's the other thing. Topuria, what is Topuria right now? I'm trying to remember. Is he 14-0? Let me look. Let me take a look. He's 16-0. Chimaev's 14-0, right? So both undefeated. And look, Chimaev out of 14 wins. This is crazy. He has 12 finishes. Ilia Topuria, 16 wins. How many finishes does he have? That is straight up insane. 14 finishes. So these guys are finishing machines. Pause. These guys are exciting. These guys have personalities that fans are attracted to. I'm telling you right now, Ilia Topuria and Khamzat Chimaev will be blockbuster draws in the UFC if they continue to win. And it's not even like they need to string like 3 or 4 wins together. We're talking like 1 or 2 wins, and I think they're massive draws. I think they're drawing over 1 million pay-per-view buys. Because soon enough, it's going to be like, who can beat these guys? Who's going to be able to beat these guys? And the UFC is really going to be building those storylines, and it's going to be like, okay, we got dominant champions that love them or hate them. Is someone going to be able to dethrone them? And I really think it's going to result in being substantial draws in the UFC. Those are my top takeaways from UFC 308. There's so many other takeaways I could have had. But let me know what you guys took away from UFC 308. Don't forget to go check out that other Khamzat Chimaev video that I did. I will link it down in the description as well as the end cards. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and thank you so much for watching.